Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's public safety briefing led by Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Phil Banks. During today's briefing, after each speaker, we will take a few questions from the media related to their announcement. Following our last speaker, we will take a few questions that have been submitted by the public ahead of today's briefing. I would now like to turn it over to Deputy Mayor Phil Banks.
Hey, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone, and certainly welcome. My name is Phil Banks. I'm the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety. I'm joined here today by some of my esteemed colleagues who are going to be sharing some very interesting and useful suggestions. And we're just going to continue to let you know exactly what the Mayor's administration is doing, what we're doing to keep you safe, and what we need you to do to help us keep you safe. So you have an opportunity to hear from each of us, and then at the end, we certainly will be hearing from you. We'll hear from you in the form of questions that were submitted in response to an email that was sent out by the Mayor to people who have signed up to get updates directly from City Hall. So if you have not received this email, and certainly if you would like to submit questions, I encourage you to visit nyc.gov and click on the Office of the Mayor. Sign up for those emails and stay in touch with us. And please provide this information to your neighbor, to your colleagues at work, and to your family. Now, we have a lot of very important updates and information to bring to you today, so we're going to jump in. Okay, so I'm once again joined by the FDNY Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh and her Chief of Fire Prevention, Anthony Saccarino. And I should know that because I had numerous conversations with him. But they're going to talk about some very interesting topics, right? Laura was here, the FDNY Commissioner was here 2 weeks ago, I think it was, Commissioner, and she talked about e-bikes, e-bikes fires, and the dangers of these lithium batteries. And we're going to talk about some recent legislation. But we're back again, and you know what happens? You're going to continue to hear from the fire department. You're going to continue to hear from Fire Commissioner Kavanaugh, because this is a very, very crucial, very important, and very preventable topics. So right now, Commissioner Kavanaugh, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to start by saying a quick note of thanks to the Bronx District Attorney and the jurors up in the Bronx, who this week found Jose Gonzalez guilty for the murder of EMT Yadira Arroyo. We are incredibly grateful that there has finally been justice in this case, and our hearts go out to Yadi's family and friends for their continued heartbreak and loss. Thank you to the Deputy Mayor for this forum to discuss, as he mentioned, this very critical issue that confronts both the citizens of New York and the first responders who are responding to the many lithium-ion battery fires that we have seen in recent weeks. We are coming at this problem from every single angle as an administration. We have passed legislation with the New York City Council about additional regulation of these devices. This package of bills is meant to ensure our firefighters and the public are safer by restricting the sale, lease, and rental of powered mobility devices like e-bikes and e-scooters and batteries for them that fail to meet the recognized safety standard certification. Further, these devices would be required to be UL certified, which is a safety standard, to be legally sold in the city. Our federal partners have also been helping as well. Earlier this week, I joined Congressmember Richie Torres at the scene of a massive 5-alarm fire that tore through a Bronx supermarket over the weekend. Congressman Torres' legislation would require that the Consumer Product Safety Commission established a final consumer product safety standard for rechargeable lithium-ion batteries and for use in e-bikes. Many of you have already seen the damage that can be caused from one single battery. And here's proof, once again, in this surveillance video that captures the moment the battery explodes in the supermarket. This is an incredible volume of fire. As you can see in this video, these fires spread incredibly quickly and with great force, and they pose a huge risk to our members and to the public. In this case, someone was on scene, and this amount of fire was still insurmountable for him and destroyed an entire building. The devastation in this case claimed actually a whole row of stores and a much frequented commercial strip in the Bronx on which many local residents were dependent. Damage caused by a single battery. Now imagine what would happen if a fire started where there were multiple batteries, which is something our Bureau of Fire Prevention encountered earlier this week in Manhattan, as you can see here. A tip led our team to a parking garage where they discovered more than 100 e-bikes and more than 200 batteries charging in a makeshift charging station. The batteries were plugged into an unapproved power strip and an extension cord, which posed a significant fire hazard. The team also noted that the charging area was not enclosed with the required minimum 1-hour fire rating per charging area. Additionally, there was insufficient space between each battery, a minimum of 2 feet while charging, which is always necessary to prevent thermal runaway. Imagine the damage this many batteries could cause, as you can see here, sitting out in the open, sitting on a pallet of wood, given what we have already seen resulting from just one single battery. This is the reason that we have been imploring the public to be smart about using these batteries and these e-bikes. Please make sure these devices are not sitting in your hallway or your exit or your only way out of your room or your home. Please make sure you look for UL certification. It's a small sticker on any electronic device, and make sure your device is manufacturer approved. Don't use broken batteries or repaired batteries, and please don't charge them overnight or when you're not watching them. We have already this year had 33 fires from this, 42 injuries, and 2 deaths. This is not a problem that is going to go away without continued action. Rather, it is one we will continue to talk about and alert the public about, and keep showing videos of the damage caused. The volume of fire, the sudden nature of the explosions caused by these devices, all of it makes for a potentially catastrophic situation if there is a fire for both the public and our first responders. And again, we're calling on the public to be partners with us, to be smart about using these devices, especially those who are dependent on them for their livelihood. And in the case of something like the parking garage, please alert us by calling 311 to any situation that may concern you. We can send in our teams to check it out. We're going to continue working with our local and federal partners, and we will be on the streets working with residents and community stakeholders so that everyone is on the same page about combating this incredible hazard. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner, how long has Chief Sacavino been the Chief of Fire Prevention?
I think about a month now.
Yeah.
But he has been there for some number of years and is incredibly experienced in this area.
Yes, and so Chief, I'd just like for you to just add on to our listening audience, anything that you'd like to input to re-emphasize this point.
Yeah, Commissioner, our stance in the fire department, especially in the Bureau of Fire Prevention, has been safety and awareness, just to get the message out that we have to be smart about how we charge the batteries, what kind of batteries we're using. I think the problem lies with the batteries that have been, when the original battery dies out, from what we understand, it's pretty expensive to replace that battery. So normally what somebody would do is look for the cheapest way to get a new battery, and without them knowing that this battery has most likely been modified and is not safe. So our message is continuously safety, 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 right? We want to keep the public safe as well as the visitors, as well as our members in the department. And our thing is not to so much penalize anybody, but just to keep everybody safe.
And I'd just like to add that, we focus on that these aftermarket batteries are less expensive, but the reality of the matter is when we're losing lives and losing property, they actually become much more expensive. 2 points I'd just like to just speak with you about, Commissioner. Last time you were here, you would have been very interested in 2 takeaways. Do not have these bikes charging in your area of regress. I thought that was very important. That was a takeaway that I remembered, right? If it's the door or the window that you have to get out in case of a fire, do not have it there. This is something that we can do as a city. And certainly, don't charge it overnight, right? That was the other takeaway that you had, right? So I just want to make sure that we just re-emphasize that point, that no matter how we either report this or we're talking to our neighbors and our friends, those are the areas that we have to get out, right? One, we don't want you to buy an aftermarket battery, and we are enacting legislation to try to combat that. But legislation is just legislation. What we can do as a city is take these useful tips and make sure we spread it to as many people as we possibly can, because we can actually turn a corner. The last point that I'd like to bring up, and we spoke about this, Commissioner, is that when that fire ignited, there was a person there. He saw the fire. So just imagine that if you're in a building where you're sleeping, and now the flames could go for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes before anybody's aware. This person was there, and the fire ignited, and look at the damage that it caused. So this is something as a team that we can do. I think you'll be hearing Commissioner Kavanaugh and her chief speak about this extensively throughout the years. And as a team, this is something that we can prevent. So I just want to thank you and thank you, Chief, for that.
You're welcome.
So next up, we have questions, right?
Thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Mayor. We will now take a couple of on-topic questions from the media for the FDNY related to today's announcement. Chris Sommerfeld from the Daily News, your line is now unmuted.
Hi, Deputy Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for holding the briefing. I was wondering, since it is a public safety briefing, wondering why Police Commissioner Sewell is not present and if her absence has anything to do with Chief Holmes' kind of abrupt departure from the police department?
I think, were you here when we had our opening, Bon Voyage, when we started this here? We had everybody here, and we said each week there were going to be different people here. Like last week, we had agency heads that were not here. And this week, you're not going to see some of the people here. So it's only 4 or 5 of us. We're going to speak briefly. So nobody, you're just going to have to get used to my ugly face every week. Everyone else will be moving and coming back. So that is the reason why there's no topic and for the NYPD this week.
Our next question comes from Katie Honan from the City.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello? So I also have a question, not that I'm also not interested in e-bike fires, but the question is for you, Deputy Mayor Banks. I don't know if you saw the story published by my colleague Yoav Gonen about Chief Madry's intervention in the after a ex-cop, 3 kids said that he brandished a gun in front of them and threatened them when they hit his security camera. He was then, he immediately called Chief Madry, who was not in his current position at the time, but he was in a different role. And, within less than an hour, he was released from the precinct. There's video that shows some, intervention from Chief Madry. I know you have a long experience with the police department and its protocols. So I wanted to get your take, if you think that's an appropriate use, and if you watch the videos and you think that was appropriate action from him.
Derek, can I ask you a question? Did we say we want to be on topic here?
We did, sir.
Listen here, Katie, right? You have plenty of times to ask your questions and submit them. We're staying on topic, right? So there's certain type of discipline that we all have to be able to follow. So we're on topic. There's people that's actually concerned about where these e-bikes are so they can save lives. And that's what we're looking to get here. So if you have a question that's off topic, we like to trade discipline. We want to ask the questions as much as possible. The administrations ask questions. We're staying on topic here. You can have your question answered. And no, I don't read the publication that you mentioned anyway, so I'm not even aware of it. Okay, so now we're going to hear from Commissioner Lou Molina. Listen here. Hey, Lou. Rikers Island and the Department of Corrections has been a major topic in the city for many, many years. You inherited a very, very difficult job. We speak almost every night at 11:30, 12 o'clock. It goes often, and I just think that you're doing a fantastic job, and I don't pass these compliments lightly. So what are we going to talk about, and what are the people going to hear from you today about?
So I think it's important for the public to know of some movement we made in curtailing slashing, stabbings, which is a major violence indicator for the department, as well as assaults on staff. And we've done a number of initiatives in order to make sure that we are trending and reducing those incidences from happening. So fiscal year to date, our slashing and stabbings have been down 13%, about 9 months into this fiscal year, which is huge for us. As you know, at the beginning of January of 2022, we walked into a situation where violence was skyrocketing in the department because of just a number of issues that were neglected, and now to be fiscal year to date at a 13% decline is big. The other thing I'd like to share with the public, in the month of February this year, we had a 30% decline in slashing and stabbings when compared to February of last year. In addition to that, February of this year was the lowest number of slashing and stabbing incidences that we had in the department going back to January of 2021. In addition to that, when we look at the month of March, which we're almost hitting mid-month, slashing and stabbings are down 52%. So that's really huge for our department as we've begun to really stabilize and just make sure that the people that are in our custody, as well as our staff, contract providers, and volunteers are safe. In addition to that, assaults on staff fiscal year to date are also down 42% fiscal year to date. That's huge for our staff, Our staff, our contract providers, our partners at Correctional Health Services deserve to also work in a safe environment, and we need to make sure that environment for those that are in our custody is also humane and just. So a number of steps that we've taken over the last 15 months brought us to this point. As I've stated publicly before, we've significantly increased the use of tactical search operations and facility search operations, which we recovered over 5,000 contraband weapons out of our jail system, in addition to over 1,300 contraband narcotics and narcotics paraphernalia. In addition to that, with the mayor's support and the support of Deputy Mayor Banks, we've done a number of infrastructure improvements to include the installation of new doors that have better locking mechanism, in addition to putting window coverings over plexiglass windows to ensure that those windows are not broken and turned into weapons. We have also imprinted a number of our canine dogs to be able to detect fentanyl on its own. As you know, a number of items are laced with fentanyl, specifically paper items and clothing items, and now we have canine that has helped us to improve our drug interdiction strategies, not only in mail coming into the jail system, but also of vehicle checkpoints of individuals that work on or volunteer or are contract workers coming onto Rikers Island or our borough facilities. We now use those canine operations to check those vehicles as well. I want to just thank the District Attorney of the Bronx, District Attorney Darcel Clark. We also are holding detainees accountable that commit serious crimes and acts of violence within our jail system. And in 2022, we had an increase of 80% of rearrest of detainees that commit serious crime and violence either against other people in custody or our staff. And another strategy that we're going to do to mitigate against contraband coming into our facilities, on Monday we are starting the body scanning of individuals that go into the Robert and Davern Center, which is also known as RNDC. It's the first step toward just increasing and enhancing the security mechanisms on Rikers Island and eventually our borough facilities as well. So all persons entering the Robert and Davern Center starting on Monday will be subject to randomized body scanning. And that's my update for this week.
So, Commissioner, let me ask you a question. You mentioned something about our canines being imprinted for fentanyl.
Yes.
Did any other agency or who assist you with that, or what type of training did they go through?
Yeah, so in our initial operations, we partnered with our partner in NYPD who already had canine dogs that were already imprinted with fentanyl, and they helped us on our first vehicle inspection operation, while our canines were trained in consultation and partnership with the Custom and Border Protection Agency. So what we did was we sent handlers there with their dogs 4 at a time, and they go to an in-depth training process with the Custom and Border Protection so that our canines had that capability to detect fentanyl.
You know, I just want to just elaborate that point to the public out there, was that the mayor had directed his administration to reach out to all agencies, and we reached out to Custom and Borders very early on in administration, and they reached out consistently to us. How can we help? How can we work together? How can we take this fight of public safety and, instead of operating in silos, work together? So first of all, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to them, because they've been very helpful. We're working on them on some other issues. They have been a great, great partner, and we decided to work together and kind of concentrate on our similarities instead of focusing on our differences. That what we do is that we can actually achieve this public safety ecosystem and create this public safety for New York City. So I just appreciate that, and I certainly want to appreciate them.
Again, we are taking on-topic questions for Commissioner Molina. Jeff Colden from City and State, your line is unmuted.
Hey, thanks for taking the question. Look, arrests of the 7 major crimes are up, but the crime rate overall is trending downwards. Just wanted to ask the commissioner, what's the effect of the population on Rikers Island? Is that going up? Is that down? Have we noticed any changes with that recent crime trend?
So I've already stated publicly that if the administration of justice doesn't change based on the revised the criminal justice reform laws and other issues, what we have seen over the last 15 months is our population trending upward. But we have the capacity to manage the population as it comes in, and so we're managing that within our system.
Okay, so next we're going to hear from Christian Klausner, who's our Executive Director of the Office of Special Enforcement. I'm going to gather to say that most people may not have heard of you or of your unit, but I certainly well aware of the critical work that you do. So right now, Christian, let's tell the public who you are and what we're doing, good stuff we're doing over there at OSC.
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Banks, and thank you also to Mayor Adams and all those attending today's briefing. My name is Christian Klosner, the Executive Director of the Office of Special Enforcement, which is an office within the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. It's also known as OSC. OSC's mandate is to coordinate efforts across city agencies to problem solve around emerging issues adversely affecting neighborhood cohesion, livability, and safety. The vast majority of OSC's work since 2015 has related to addressing illegal short-term rentals occurring in the city's permanent housing stock. By working to stop the proliferation of these illegal short-term rentals, OSC works to preserve permanent housing stock citywide, to prevent harassment and displacement of permanent residents, and to promote safety and quality of life throughout our communities. Our enforcement efforts protect residents and visitors to New York from dangerous violations of the city's building and fire codes, while striving to minimize disruptive activity in New Yorkers' residential neighborhoods and buildings. To be clear, short-term rentals are those for fewer than 30 consecutive days. The state and city laws that have been on the books for decades that apply in New York City restrict rentals for fewer than 30 days to only those situations where up to 2 guests are staying with a permanent occupant. Short-term rentals are illegal where the host is not staying with the guests, where the rental is for the entire unit, or where more than 2 guests are staying. In January of last year, the city adopted Local Law 18, also known as the Short-Term Rental Registration Act. In general, this law first requires that all short-term rental hosts register with the city and agree to operate legally. And second, that online booking services are prohibited from collecting fees from transactions for short-term rentals unless they have either verified that the rental is registered or exempt from registration. The law also requires OSC to maintain a prohibited buildings list comprised of buildings whose owners have notified OSC that short-term rentals are prohibited in the building. OSC finalized rules implementing this law in early February after reviewing hundreds of comments and conducting 2 public comment hearings. These rules include significant changes from the proposed rules designed to make the registration even easier for hosts and provided additional protections for the online booking platforms. OSC is pleased to report that this past Monday, March 6, marked the opening of its short-term rental registration portal, which includes online applications both for hosts to register their home for short-term rentals, as well as for building owners to notify OSC that short-term rentals are prohibited in their buildings. The portal is accessible from OSC's website, which can be reached at nyc.gov/OSE. The very first icon on the page, which reads "Short-term rental registration has begun. Click to learn more and apply," will take all users to our registration law page, which contains links to both applications, copies of the law and rules, frequently asked questions for hosts and owners, and importantly, a list of tips for hosts on preparing to complete the application. The host application is simple. Applicants need to provide 6 pieces of information: their name, their phone number, their email, their address, whether they rent or own, and the number of unrelated people that live in the unit. They then disclose the online listings they use to advertise their short-term rentals, upload 1 proof of ID, 2 proofs of permanent occupancy, a portion of the lease if they're a renter, and then they check a series of boxes indicating their understanding of and agreement to follow the various laws and rules relating to short-term rentals and the registration program. Applicants that follow the tips on the OSC website and prepare in advance should expect the application process to take only 15 to 20 minutes. The building owner application is also very easy. Applicants to the prohibited building list simply provide their name and contact information and the building address and certify that short-term rentals are prohibited in the building, and also check off boxes indicating they understand the laws and rules related to the list. This process should not take more than 5 minutes. As of midnight last night, OSC had received 1,474 applications for the prohibited buildings list, and hosts have completed 52 applications for registration and started dozens more. OSC looks forward to continuing to support legal short-term rental hosts throughout this process. In closing, I'd like to thank the many members of the administration that supported this project, as well as my colleagues at the Law Department, the Department of Buildings, the Fire Department, Housing Preservation Development, and especially the tireless team at the Office of Technology and Innovation. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the chance to
No, thank you. We
share this with
appreciate
the
it.
public.
So we just want to break this down so that the public can actually understand it. Short-term rentals, 30 days or less, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so start going over what are some of the other limitations of what you can or cannot do. 30 days or less. Now, if you own a two-family, you have a mother-daughter or some type of two-family, can you Airbnb out the second apartment?
You can only do short-term rentals in the unit that you live in while you're living there.
Right.
If it's a two-family and the second unit is empty, that is legally used only for permanent residential housing, and we encourage homeowners to make money by renting to long-term residents in that situation.
So that's the part that I just want to make sure that the takeaway here. You own a two-family, right? And you live in one of the apartments and you have another apartment. You can only Airbnb the apartment that you physically are living in, and you have to be there. You can't go on vacation while you're doing it, correct? You have to physically be living there when that takes place.
Correct.
Now, let's talk to the landlords now. If the landlord has a two-family that he or she is renting out, or a three-family, right, he or she is renting out, and they do not wish for their dwelling, their premise, to be utilized by their tenants for Airbnb or any type of short-term rentals, what do they need to do?
They go to our website, nyc.gov/OSC. They click on the very first thing they see, and it will take them to a link to the Prohibited Buildings List portal. They include their name. If it's an attorney or a managing agent, those people can also fill out the application. It takes under 5 minutes. They put the building address, and it's automatically added to the list once they say, I certify that the leases and other occupancy agreements in this building prohibit short-term rentals.
So what happens, two questions for you. What happens if someone has an apartment, they don't register, but then they go on the Airbnb site or any other type of competitors or site to engage in a short-term rental? What's the repercussions? Is there any type of penalties? Does Airbnb allow that? What are we looking at if someone attempts to do that?
Sure. So the law envisioned a 4-month period in between registration and enforcement. The city wants hosts to have time to understand the process, get into the system, complete their applications, give us time to review. After 4 months, when enforcement begins, the booking platforms will be required to verify with the city computer system if this is a valid registration. If it is not registered, they are prohibited from processing the transaction. So in your situation, if someone tries to do it without registering, the major sites will simply say, sorry, you are not registered, we can't process this.
Okay. That was very informative, and I appreciate it. I'm sure the public does too, Christian. So,
Thank you, sir.
okay. So, last but certainly not least, we have our New York City Emergency Management Commissioner Zach Iscol, and he's going to talk to us about Notify New York City and Commissioner for a Day contest. Correct?
That is correct,
Take it
sir.
away, Zach.
Commissioner for a Day. Thank you, sir.
right.
And thanks for having us today. Thank you for everybody who is tuning in. As the Deputy Mayor said during the first one of these panels, was the public is the sixth man. And we need your help in creating public safety. And that is true also for emergency management. So at emergency management, one of the things that we do is we have something called Watch Command. Watch Command monitors everything going on in the city 24/7, 365. We have an incredible team. They monitor everything going on in this city. NYPD, FDNY, EMS calls, utilities, infrastructure, everything that's going on, they keep watch on. And then when something happens, they help coordinate the interagency response. They help making sure that the city is getting its resources out to the scene. And the other thing that they do is they alert the public to what's happening. They let people know what's going on around the city, things that they need to know about. This could be weather events, it could be transit disruptions, it could be major emergencies like the mass shooting that occurred a year ago. So this is really important information for the public to have. And our official notification system is something called Notify NYC. This was initially launched as a pilot program in 2007. It was then expanded citywide to the 5 boroughs in 2009. I'm very proud to announce that we now have well over 1 million subscribers to Notify NYC, but we can't rest and we need your help getting all 8.3, 8.5 million New Yorkers subscribed to Notify NYC so that they have the information, so that you have the information that you need to keep yourself safe, your neighbors safe, your family safe, your loved ones safe. So this is really important for everybody to sign up. You can sign up by going to 311, by visiting nyc.gov, notify NYC, or by following us on social channels. This is also available in 14 languages, including American Sign Language. It's customizable based on the type of notifications you want to get and based on your language preference. So I strongly encourage and urge everyone to sign up for Notify NYC. In addition to that, we are launching our third annual New York City Emergency Management Commissioner for a Day program. This is an essay contest for New York City high school students. It's one of my favorite days of the year, getting to meet these young kids. People can enter by submitting an essay. And you can find out more information on our website, nyc.gov/emergency management, also on our social channels. And then you can submit your essay by April 1st to readynewyork@oem.nyc.gov. So looking forward to reading your submissions. Thank you.
Okay, so Zach, before we go to any questions or continue, let's talk about this Notify NYC. We have 1 million subscribers,
Yes, sir. That's correct.
14 languages.
Yes, sir. 14 languages, including American Sign Language.
So to the public, this is the takeaway, right? One, we urge you to sign up for it. And two, we also urge you to tell one person in your family to sign up for it. I mean, we could get this to 2 million tomorrow if we just signed up, if you're not, and now tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a relative. But I'd like to go in a little more detail. What exactly, give a specific example of 1 or 2 notifications. I mean, are you going to be texting them 100 times a day about nonsense, or are we talking about some real quality information that they could use in their everyday life?
Yes, sir. So you can set your settings to determine what information you're getting. If you're specifically interested in transit disruptions, you can set the settings to just get messages about transit disruptions, a shutdown on the L train, something going on in the FDR. You can also do it by your neighborhood. We also send out a lot of information about weather. In particular, if you live in areas that are prone to coastal flooding, we will let you know about NWS alerts and also give you the information that you need to be prepared for those types of weather events.
Excellent, okay.
Thank you. Earlier this week, the administration reached out to New Yorkers asking them to submit questions for the officials that have joined us here today. We will now get to as many of those questions as we can with the time that we have left. Our first question comes from Karen from Manhattan. This is for the FDNY. She says, what can the FDNY do working with the City Council to take the threat of e-bikes and scooters seriously? They are extremely dangerous to the safety of New Yorkers.
Thank you for that question. We agree these are very dangerous devices, and we have worked hand in hand with the City Council, who has both passed and proposed a number of pieces of legislation that are going to help us both regulate these devices in the city of New York so that the devices coming in are safe, but also will help give us resources to reach out to the public and do education and training. And we're going to keep collaborating with them until this danger has been eliminated.
Our next question comes from Kathleen from the Bronx. This is for Commissioner Molina. Does Rikers Island have security cameras in every portion of the jail?
So the Department of Corrections has over 12,500 stationary cameras throughout all of our facilities in our system. In addition to that, our officers also wear body-worn cameras. So we have over 3,000 body-worn cameras that we deploy to our staff as well.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Molly from Queens for Commissioner Iskell. What is the best way to create an emergency plan for the dangerous flooding that we keep seeing?
Yeah, thank you, Molly, for your question. It's a great one. So first off, I encourage you to go to nyc.gov/know-your-zone and know what flood zone, coastal evacuation zone that you live in. So that's number one, and that's for coastal flooding. There's different types of flooding that we need to be prepared for. Coastal storm surge coming from the ocean is one. We're also seeing events like Hurricane Ida or post-tropical storms where you're starting to see flooding in certain neighborhoods from high amounts of rainfall coming from the skies, cloudburst events. So best way to also be prepared for that is to have the information you need about the forecast, watching the weather, signing up for Notify NYC. And again, you can do that at nyc.gov/Notify NYC. You can also download the app in the iTunes Store and through the Google App Store, and then following us on social channels, or even by calling 311 if you're less tech savvy. So having the information that you need through Notify NYC, knowing your zone. And then third of all, you can go to our website, nyc.gov, /emergency management, and there's a link there where you can actually get walked through developing an emergency plan that works for you based on your specific needs. You know, every family is different. You may or may not have pets. You may or may not have an older adult you need to care for. Maybe you have kids, medications. But that resource will help you sort of ask the questions and then build your own individually tailored emergency plan for any event, not just for flooding.
Our next question comes from Lyric Thompson from Brooklyn for Commissioner Kavanaugh. My question is with regard to fire-rated doors. Can you explain more about NFPA 80?
Sure. So a fire-rated door helps ensure that a fire can be contained within an apartment. So you've often heard us say to please close the door after you if you're evacuating your apartment and it's on fire. These doors make sure that fire is contained. And I'd like the chief to explain a little bit about how you can actually look at your door and know whether it is fire-rated.
Okay, definitely, Commissioner. On a fire-rated door, on the edge of the door, closest to the hinge side, there's going to be a tag. And these doors are of the metal-clad type, right? They're not wood. And basically, that tag will state whether or not it's approved as a fire door.
Thank you. Next question comes from Lorraine from Manhattan for Commissioner Molina. How can our loved ones suffering from mental health be safe in prison? Are there social services available for them?
So we, the Department of Corrections, we do have mental health observation housing. It's managed by with our partnership with the Correctional Health Services. An example of that housing is our PACE units, which stands for the Program for Accredited Accelerated Clinical Effectiveness. And in those housing units, not only do we have uniformed correctional officers that are given specialized training to work with that vulnerable population, but there's also staff by members of the Correctional Health Services, and those members are non-uniformed clinicians that work with that vulnerable population.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Makiba from Manhattan for Deputy Mayor Banks. How can the public have more access to government officials?
Well, the first thing is here, right through here. I like to start on our Friday briefings, so that's the first start. Two, sign up for Notify NYC, right? So I think Zach just gave a great presentation. You'll hear a lot more about that. We always talk about it in the beginning, right? I always tell everybody that you want to hear from the mayor, go to NewYorkCity.gov and click on the Office of the Mayor. At that particular point, you will be receiving emails and information updates about government. And then your local council members, that are your representatives. I encourage everybody as a start. Do you know who your local council member is? Do you know who your local, your assembly person, your state senator? So sometimes it's this knowledge. Do you know who your precinct commander is? So as a first, I think it was a great question, right? Go down to the basics, right? Tune in here, right? Every Friday. We'd like for you to do that. That's the first thing. Two, what Commissioner Isco just mentioned about sign up for his alerts. We mentioned NYC.gov, Office of the Mayor, and find out who's your local precinct commander, who's your local community board chairperson, who's your local council person, who's your state assembly, who's your state senator. If you just start with that as one, we can see how we can continue. I think that was a great question, and I just thank you.
Next question comes from Tahir for FDNY Commissioner Kavanaugh. What are the next steps for regulating, banning specific lithium-ion batteries that are putting New York inspection staff, public, and property at risk?
That's a great question. So we are working with our federal, state, and city partners. And so we have legislation pending on every level that will regulate these devices and ensure that the only safe devices are being sold. We are asking, as you heard here today, to have the community work with us. As the deputy mayor mentioned, this regulation will work and it will change the safety of the devices coming in. But many people have these devices in their homes right now. And so what we're imploring people to do is to make sure that that bike is never charging in an area that would prevent you from getting out of your room or getting out of your apartment. As you can see, the volume of fire from these are tremendous, and we want to make sure even in the case where this unfortunate action were to occur and there was a fire, you could get out and the first responders could get to you. So we are tackling this issue. We are going to lower the incidences of these fires, but we really ask for anyone who has a bike in their home right now to make sure you follow that safety tip and make sure it's not in the way of you and getting out of your apartment.
And I just have to just add on to that, Commissioner, if I can. And I just don't want to harp on this, but this issue, to me, is very preventable. If you talk about safety challenges over the course of years, you're talking about wearing seatbelts. Like before it got into society, people didn't wear their seatbelts and they were dying. But it took time for people to start getting used to Click It. We had all sorts of campaign ads and Click It. And over the course of we got to a point where the majority of the people do wear seatbelts. People died. We are going to get a handle as a city on these lithium batteries. The question is that we can do it without anybody dying, or we can wait till X number of people die. And this is something that we can do together as a team being everybody in New York City. We have a vested interest. I can't see any two sides of the equation on this area here. So please continue to push that out. We're asking members of the media to push that out. But more importantly, we're talking to the people who are listening in here. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, and after you do it, tell another one. And after you do it, tell another one, because we can actually make some progress and save some lives here.
Our final question comes from David from Brooklyn. I will pose this to Deputy Mayor Banks. Does the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice work with the Department of Education or CUNY in, for example, reentry programs or other? Does education play a role in ensuring public safety more generally?
2 points. Education plays a huge role in public safety. Not only one, just having people educated about public safety. There used to be a saying in an old clothing store, and I'm probably dating my age, that an educated consumer is our best customer. It was a men's clothing store primarily. And an educated consumer is public safety's best, right? Understand exactly what is going on. But two, when we start educating and the mayor speaks about it all of the time, and the chancellor speaks about it often, that we have to educate these children. We have to get them right. Because we get them out, it's a pathway out of poverty. It's a pathway out of just so many of the ills that lead to public safety. So public safety is not just putting a cop on a corner and looking to deter robbery, though that is important. There's many, many facets of public safety, and that's what we're looking to do here with one of the things we're looking to achieve with this forum here. But yes, MOCJ does. Reentry is one of the many things that they do. So you look how the extension goes. You have probation, you have correction, you have the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, MOCJ. When people are leaving corrections, they have needs. These needs have to be met. And if you don't meet them, what you're going to do is have them back in Rikers again, which is what we don't want to do, right? We don't want people in the criminal justice system. No one should want that, right? So traditional housing, coming out, do you need a job? How can we help you? Do you need some housing? Do you need some financial support until you can get yourself on your own feet? And MOCJ actually takes lead on that, and I think they do a very good job. It's a great question. I'm going to have them here next week to speak specifically on that particular area so that we can get that out. And the trick is to limit the incarceration as much as possible. And the ones that do commit these crimes or they dampen our public safety, we need to see whether or not what ills that they have that we can correct. And the ones that don't, then of course that's what the criminal justice system facilities to incarcerate them. But the goal is to minimize incarceration as much as we possibly can. You cannot arrest and incarcerate your way out of a public safety issue. No one can do that, and I think that's been established. A great question, and thank you.
On behalf of the Adams administration, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in to today's briefing. We look forward to seeing you at our next one. Have a great day.